The wind carried the scent of hay and earth, rushing through the wheat fields like a whisper of old secrets. Clara stood by the wooden fence, her blue dress swaying softly as she looked toward the setting sun. She'd come to this small ranch town to start over, to leave behind the noise of a life that never felt hers. Jake Carson watched her from a distance, leaning against the barn wall, hat tilted low over his brow. He wasn't used to strangers on his land, but something about the quiet way she held herself made him pause. She wasn't here to take, she was here to heal, and somehow, he knew that because he'd been trying to do the same for years. Clara turned, startled but calm. "Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to trespass. I was just looking." "Don't apologize for looking," Jake said, walking closer, the crunch of gravel under his boots filling the space between them. "The land's prettier when someone actually takes the time to notice it." She smiled faintly. "It is beautiful. Peaceful, too. I almost forgot places like this existed." Jake nodded, hands resting on his belt. "Peace is a rare thing. You either fight for it or stumble onto it when you least expect." There was silence, the kind that didn't need to be filled. The sky turned orange, and the fields shimmered like gold. For a brief moment, Clara felt something she hadn't in years. Safe. Jake finally tipped his hat and smiled. "Name's Jake Carson. And you are?" "Clara," she said softly. "Clara Dawson. Clara Dawson. You look like someone the wind brought here on purpose." She blushed, laughing nervously. Maybe it did. The breeze grew cooler, brushing through her hair. Jake turned toward the barn. "You're welcome to rest here for a bit. Ain't much, but it's honest." And as she followed him, the sound of her steps beside his felt like the start of something neither of them had planned, something the land itself seemed to approve of. Inside the old barn, the air smelled of hay and warmth. Dust floated like golden sparks in the fading light. Clara followed Jake, her steps light but uncertain, as if each footfall might reveal too much of her story. Jake set down a lantern. "You can sit," he said, motioning toward a hay bale. "Ain't much of a welcome, but it's clean, and quiet enough to hear your own thoughts." Clara smiled faintly. "That's all I've been looking for lately, quiet thoughts." Jake chuckled. "Careful what you wish for. Out here, the silence can start talking back." Clara could tell he wasn't a man of many words, but the ones he spoke seemed to matter. She looked around. "You live here alone?" Jake nodded. "Just me and the land. My folks passed years ago, and the ranch, well, it's what's left of their dream." He paused, then added, "Guess I keep it alive 'cause I don't know what else I'd be if I let it die." Clara listened closely, her heart tugging. "I know what that feels like. Holding on to something just because you're afraid of what comes after." Their eyes met. The moment stretched, unspoken pain and understanding weaving between them. Outside, the crickets began their nightly chorus, and the world seemed to quiet around just the two of them. Jake broke the silence first. "You got a place to stay tonight?" Clara hesitated. "No, I came here on impulse. The bus stopped at the crossroads, and I just walked." Then he nodded slowly. "You can take the spare room inside. Ain't fancy, but it's got a roof, a bed, and a lock if you want it." She looked surprised. "You'd let a stranger stay here?" He half smiled. "Ma used to say, if a soul's wandering, it's 'cause the world's been too loud for too long." "You look like one of those souls." Clara felt her chest tighten, not from fear, but from the rare kindness she hadn't seen in years. "Thank you, Jake," she said softly. He tipped his hat. "Don't thank me yet, miss. The ranch has a way of makin' folks face what they've been running from." As they stepped out into the cool night, the stars stretched endless above them. Clara looked up, feeling both small and seen. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't just passing through. Somewhere deep inside, a spark began to glow, faint but real. And Jake, though he didn't say it, felt it too. Something about this woman wasn't chance. It was a beginning written in the dust and starlight of that Texas sky. The ranch house stood quiet against the night sky, its porch light flickering like an old memory refusing to fade. The air smelled faintly of cedar and coffee, the scent of a life built from simple routines. "It ain't much, but the sheets are clean. You'll be safe here." Clara stepped in slowly. The room was plain, a small window, a handmade quilt, and a rocking chair by the corner. But it felt warmer than any hotel room she'd ever known. She traced her fingers along the quilt, its faded patterns stitched with care. "Did your mother make this?" Jake nodded, leaning against the doorframe. "She did. Every square's a piece of her patience, I reckon. Took her 3 winters to finish it." Clara smiled softly. "It's beautiful. You can feel the love in it." He looked at her for a long moment. "You sound like someone who's been missing love for a while." Her breath caught. She didn't want to cry, not in front of a man she barely knew. But his words slipped past her walls. "Maybe I have," she admitted. "Maybe that's why I came here, to remember what peace feels like." Jake nodded slowly, eyes thoughtful. "Peace don't come easy. You gotta earn it, same as trust." She turned toward the window, moonlight brushing her face. "I don't know if I can earn anything anymore. I've made too many wrong turns." He stepped closer, his voice low but steady. "Then maybe it's time someone showed you the right road." The words hung in the air between them, simple, but heavy with meaning. Clara turned, meeting his gaze. For a moment, the world outside vanished. There was only his steady presence, his quiet strength, and the safety that seemed to bloom wherever he stood. Jake tipped his hat slightly. "You should rest. Tomorrow's a long day. Sun comes up early out here." She nodded, whispering, "Good night, Jake." He smiled faintly. "Good night, Clara." She felt warmth, not just from the fabric, but from something deeper. The kind of warmth that comes from being seen without saying much at all. He didn't know why this stranger had walked into his life tonight, but he felt it in his bones. Her arrival wasn't by accident. Maybe, just maybe, the silence they both carried was about to find its voice. The first light of dawn spilled gently through the ranch windows, painting the walls in gold and rose. The soft sound of roosters echoed from the yard as the world stirred awake. Clara opened her eyes, the scent of morning coffee drifting from the kitchen. She wasn't lost anymore. She was here, in a quiet world that didn't demand anything from her. When she stepped into the kitchen, Jake was already there, pouring coffee into 2 chipped mugs. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his hair still tousled from sleep. He looked up, and the faintest smile crossed his face. "Mornin'. You sleep all right?" Clara nodded, a shy smile tugging her lips. "Better than I have in months." He handed her the mug. "Good. This place has a way of letting folks breathe again." She took a sip. It was strong, earthy, and comforting. "Maybe that's what I needed," she said softly. "A place to breathe." Jake leaned against the counter, studying her. "You don't talk much about where you came from." She looked down at her mug, fingers tracing the rim. "There's not much worth tellin'. Just noise. People who never listened. Promises that didn't mean anything." Jake nodded slowly. "Out here, promises still mean something. Maybe that's why folks like me stay." Their eyes met again, and for a heartbeat, the silence between them said more than any words could. Clara felt something shift, small, but real, like the first spark in a long-forgotten fire. Jake broke the moment with a gentle chuckle. "I could use an extra hand round the ranch today. Nothin' too rough, just some fence checkin', maybe feedin' the horses. You up for it?" Clara smiled, a spark of life in her eyes. "I think I'd like that." Hours later, the sun climbed higher, and the 2 of them worked side by side in the open field. The wind tugged at her hair as she laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. Jake watched her, a quiet pride rising in his chest. He didn't know her story, but he didn't need to. The land had brought her here, and that was reason enough. When the day faded and the sky turned crimson again, they stood by the fence, watching the sunset. Jake spoke softly, like they belong. Clara looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Maybe I already do." And in that moment, with the fading light wrapping around them, something unspoken settled in their hearts, a promise neither had planned to make, but both had already begun to keep.